All right. Hey, everybody, it's Shonna Dorsey here with,
Jeff Slobotski.
and,
Garry Clark.
Got
and
it.
we are here with the Millwork Commons video series. Jeff's going to tell us a little bit about what this series is about, and then we'll kick off our interview with Garry here in a second.
Absolutely. Shauna, great to see you again. And Garry, thanks for joining us today. The Millwork Commons video series, really what we're trying to do is highlight and promote just change makers, entrepreneurs, and creatives in the greater Omaha and Nebraska ecosystem. So it's a project that Shauna and I started several months ago, and just getting into the content game, and but more than content, really, I think the community game. And so we're excited to have Garry on with us today. And Shauna, I will let you kick things off with our first round of questions for our guest.
Bet. So before we get into questions, I just wanted to share with everyone how I came to know Garry. He is an inspiring individual, and you'll learn more about why that is here in a second if you don't know already. But about a year or so ago, Garry, was it? Maybe 2 years ago? I don't remember anymore. Time is just weird to me right now. But we participated in a pitch competition as judges in Fremont for several either up-and-coming companies or established companies. And it was just cool to visit with Garry and hear the types of questions he asked. I think that you can tell a lot about a person by the questions they ask. And I was just really impressed with Garry and all that he does. Garry, I would love for you to take it over here for just a second and tell us about what you're doing in Fremont these days, what brought you to Fremont, and maybe even what just excites you about the community and what's going on in your area.
Sure, Shauna. Yeah, it was awesome a couple of years ago meeting you at the Milady Coffee House in downtown Fremont. I would say that I've been in Fremont for 3 years as the president and CEO of the Greater Fremont Development Council. And it has been one of the best jobs or opportunities I've ever had, partly because I'm in rural Nebraska, just outside of the Omaha metro area, actually a part of the Metro Partnership through the Greater Omaha Chamber. And we have done some amazing work with developing programs, obviously recruiting companies that have changed people's lives in our community, which is really why I got into the economic development game in the first place. But I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and I came to Fremont by way of, think about it here, West Point, Nebraska. I was in West Point for almost 6 years as the Cumming County Economic Development Director, their first ever director there. And before that, I was in Washington, D.C., and that is where I was born, obviously. And before that, I was actually in my first stint in Nebraska as a Dana College student and a UNO student as a graduate at the graduate level. So yeah, it's been a full circle of opportunities in rural places, Shauna. And right now we have done housing. We have about 2,000 plus units in the ground or being proposed in Fremont. We've increased our population by almost 1,500 people in the last couple of years. And we have a program that has supported multicultural inclusion. And we have just kind of hit things full speed with Lincoln Premium Poultry being developed there, with Holstone Farms, which is the hog operation that took over for Hormel, doing a $300 million project. Shauna and Jeff, we are at close to $1 billion in project capital investment in just about 3 years in Fremont, which is 27,000 plus people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And Garry, around the idea of rural entrepreneurship, Shauna and I know you've been involved in kind of the startup community and entrepreneurial community for a number of years here in the state. But I'm fascinated by examples of what you and the team and the community have done in even more rural areas than somebody would say Omaha, right? Like for far too long, Omaha and Lincoln were considered rural, right? But you're truly doing the work and seeing great success. So kudos to you and the community there for sure.
Yeah. The first step into entrepreneurship for me was in a place called Newberry, Florida. And it was about 3,000 people. And I created a Main Street organization there from scratch. And we did like $10,000 loans to small businesses for facade improvement. When I got to Nebraska, we reinvented that program in Cumming County. Jeff, we used a actual foundation, the Nielsen Foundation, and we started off with $5,000. And then because of the success of this facade grant and loan program, we ended up with about $75,000 that was assisting close to 80 plus businesses in the Cumming County area in facade improvement, equipment for their new businesses, new startup money, just a direct impact to businesses and young entrepreneurs who are trying to just start from scratch. Just a little bit of capital to get things going. And in Fremont, we have created what's called the Wellstead Fund. And we just initiated this, and it's about $60,000, $70,000 that will be used to give incentives to small businesses to operate in downtown Fremont. And so right now, those are the quick programs that I've started from my little lineage. And right now, tonight, I'm actually going to be speaking to the youth in Fremont who have come out of struggling circumstances about a potential project that would be tied to a small business, have jobs, to have a facility to operate out of, and to begin to build that entrepreneurial spirit. So we are having a good time in Fremont.
That's awesome. And I think it's really cool too, to just for people to realize that seed money does really make a difference, and you don't have to start with hundreds of thousands of dollars to get something off the ground. So I think that's incredible. Can you tell us a little bit about how COVID is impacting some of your efforts? You've got a lot going on, and obviously it hasn't stopped, but how are you adapting with this new whatever situation we're in?
Yeah. I mean, I think the funniest thing I heard was that we're now in year 3 of 2020.
Right. That's good. That's good.
But honestly, it has been tough on some of our retail shops. It's been tough on even our larger industries, just trying to make adjustments. But what I've learned is that we are nimble and we are versatile. And I think that is what you find out about entrepreneurs, that they're always thinking of the next thing. So we're in the midst of COVID, but it's also providing an opportunity for us to think of new and creative ways in rural places to provide services to our community. And the goal there for entrepreneurs, remember, to be an entrepreneur is to come up with a way to make life better for everyone. And sometimes we forget that that's the purpose, is how do you make life better? And I think people are starting to move that way in rural places. We're seeing that in how we diversify our lending and how we provide gaps for businesses that are trying to get back on track. And then also providing a safe place for people to think of new ways to engage customers. And so we've had some hurdles where businesses have had to close, a few of them. But we've also seen a lot of activity come back. So very interesting.
Nice. Gary, I'd ask, what are maybe an example of ways that you in the community have supported kind of an up and coming entrepreneur or business, right? I'm sure you have countless examples, but I'm hearing, I think we're all optimists on this call as well, right? But stories of individuals that are pushing ahead, right? And through your help and the community's help, are really kind of taking it to the next level. Do you have a story or two that you could share, kind of coming out of Fremont, of folks you've worked with?
Yeah. Definitely, Jeff. That's a great question. And the one that's top of mind right now, just because I just recently had a meeting with them, and this is in partnership with my colleague on the Fremont Chamber side, which is Tara Lee. Uh, RTG Medical, which started out as a small operation in Fremont, just a small business, actually upstairs above our offices in Fremont. They went from a startup to now we've helped finance what is called the local option sales tax dollars. And those dollars have helped them to create their first headquarters or start that process. It's a 60,000 square foot facility being built
Wow.
in what we call Gallery 23 East. Now, this is important only because you're talking entrepreneurship at a base level, Jeff, and deciding to stay in a rural place when you could go anywhere else to build this facility. And to go from where they're hiring people who could be a bartender one day, making bartender wages, and now making $150,000 a year. So I think to have an entrepreneur who's invested in the community, and then the community leaders, ourselves, city council, our tax dollars are being invested back into that business. And now we reap the benefits of maybe one of the great headquarters in rural places ever. And this is tied to something that is near and dear to my heart, to see a business decide, hey, I'm not going to go to a major place. I'm going to stay where they invested in me. And to have that relationship, that's the biggest example I've had. But there's several others. We have restaurants that have started up. We have Cafe Alto that started up downtown. We have actually a resurgence in what we call the 505 building downtown, which is the oldest building that had nothing in it for 20 years. And now we have Ryan Durant and his group, the 505 group, working to bring a brewery with Tim Gazelle downtown, and then to bring housing upstairs. So we're going to have a mixed-use building operation. Those are two of the key things that I think have been great for us.
Mhm.
Those are great. Those are great.
That's great, Gary. So you're doing a lot of great things now, and love to hear a little bit more about your journey to this. Like, what is it that has inspired you to pursue this and stick with things that we know can be difficult sometimes, especially when you're starting anything new? In rural Nebraska for sure, but just curious about your resiliency, is that's the word I'm thinking of. Like, how do you develop that, and how do you maintain it?
So I caught like the last half of that part.
Oh, no worries. That's okay, because it was like a rambling question.
Now I can hear you.
Okay. I just asked, how have you developed the resilience to stick with things and pursue these ideas that are grand and obviously important, and need to happen, so how have you developed that?
So I think, I grew up in a rough background in Washington, D.C. I actually published a memoir last year to talk about my journey from the D.C. projects to rural Nebraska. So first and foremost, I like to always thank Nebraska and obviously my parents, because they made me. But, that resilience comes from a place where I was homeless, a place where I knew what it was like to use food stamps or to not have food, or to try to come up with an idea to survive, just the bare necessities. And again, I'll say that is actually, the birthplace of entrepreneurship is necessity and need to make things easier. And for me, coming to Nebraska with nothing but a backpack and a dream, and then having that dream manifested after hard work. But honestly, Shonna, I've learned even deeper, and this is the humility piece, but I've been surrounded by some great people in every place that I've been in Nebraska and abroad, you know? So I would say, first and foremost, coming to Nebraska, having the support of a rural place like Blair, Nebraska, the professors there who pushed me to think and dream that I could actually be someone and impact a community. And then being in West Point and Cumming County, where these rural leaders, even people who had overalls and who were in feedlots all day, who would give me chest bumps and stuff like that, you know, from a little skinny kid from Washington, D.C. to there, to realize that there's this humanistic thing that gives you energy. And so I knew I was gonna keep trying. I was gonna keep trying to come up with new ideas, and that they were gonna support me in rural places. And now I'm in Fremont, where, again, my board is so supportive of our ideas and concepts that you can't help but continue to push. And so from a bare place where I had nothing, resilience comes out of passion to make something happen for yourself and your family. And so I have to thank a combination of people. But first things first, my background started that off.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think too, that I agree that a solid support system is critical. I was just talking about that in a post somewhere, but I was thinking about the people with the strongest support systems fare the best. And that's from kiddos to adults. Strong boards, strong relationships, all of it makes a big difference. And, you know, speaking of rural parts of our country, those are predominantly white. You're obviously a Black American male, and I'm a Black woman here. And there's some challenges there for sure that both of us have run up against as we go. But the interesting thing for me, and I don't know if this is true for you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but the interesting thing for me is that many folks in my support system happen to be white. There's white men, white women. It's just the nature of kind of the communities we live in as well. But that doesn't take away the fact that racism is an issue that we all need to be aggressively tackling and dismantling, and just being a part of making things better for everybody. So what is your thought on how you navigate that authentically, and what do you see as like your role, if you will, in making a difference in that space?
So I think this year has probably been a microcosm of a lot of different things that we have experienced over the years as African Americans, so to speak. But for me personally, I know my job is to not let anything go, so to speak, to continue to keep my foot on the gas pedal, to make sure that I'm having the best relationships I can have with people who have not experienced the Black experience, that we're giving each other a little bit of grace and understanding that the people that we're interacting with, they may not have had the experiences that we have had. And I think that's the starting point. But I also have a zero tolerance policy for hate. And I think when you come to a conversation with that in mind, that I'm going to give you a little grace, you know, for us to build here. But I'm also focused on us moving forward. And so I've had experiences where, obviously writing in the Omaha World Herald recently, where I've received some hate mail or whatnot, right? And so I am aware that we have a lot of work to do, Shonna. I am aware that not everyone is on the same lap in this race. And the only way for us to get them to catch up is to be honest with them about our experiences. And so when you share your experiences, and when Jeff shares his and I share mine, it brings them closer to catching up to where we want to all be. I would say Nebraska has been a benefit for me. So all the positive experiences totally outweigh the negative ones.
Absolutely.
But if I don't share those negative experiences, some people might think that they don't exist.
Right.
And if you believe it doesn't exist, when it does, it allows it to fester and grow. So we've got to tackle it head on. And I think that is how I've started to do that when James Scurlock was killed, when George Floyd was killed. I had several people reach out to me, actually a local group of film producers, and we produced the 846 film. It was a local group, folks from Florida, from Washington, D.C., from New York and beyond. And we put together a 846 film tied to some poetry that I wrote. And I'm totally an advocate for peace. But I also think that in Omaha alone, everyone should be willing to speak up. Everyone. And as a Black woman, I think we have to continue to lift you up and to realize that history hasn't been kind in a lot of ways, in our legal issues, in the laws that protect you, the laws that protect all of us. And so some of this, Jeff and Shonna, is just educating people on how we got here. And it's not to be dismissive of anybody's experience, because all of us have issues. No one's immune to the trials and tribulations of life. And so coming to that with a humble understanding that we're all humans, that gets us to the next step. And as a runner, I want everybody to be in the same lap. So
that's good. That's good. And you know, as a white male, right? Like one of the things I've been trying to do is dive in and learn more, right? And ask questions and not sit comfortably and say, oh, okay, you know, I will speak up, right? But it's not just speaking up, it's learning and it's educating, it's bringing peers that may look like me along into a conversation that may be uncomfortable for them as well. So, Garry, I like what you said. I subscribe to the same philosophy, right? Grace, allow for humanity to be shown, that we're all individuals, but there's zero tolerance for hate. And I think, and that needs to be said, and that needs to be said loudly, and it needs to be said by peers that, you know, look and are in the same circles as myself. And so, no, you said that really well. And yeah, you've learned some things from what you've just shared. So thank you.
So
Garry, go ahead. Sorry, Shonna. I want to ask one last question on my side, and then if Shonna has any wrap-up questions. But who or what are you inspired by? I always like to ask this of folks that I'm encouraged and inspired by. If it's a particular book, a genre of music, an individual, just like it's kind of that rapid-fire question of like, what are the things that keep you going on a daily basis?
And is it the blues artist Garry Clark, the other Garry Clark out there? He's amazing.
I mean, he is awesome. He's awesome, and I've been lucky enough to have a Garry Clark Jr. name as well. So
that's great. That's good.
But you know, Jeff, I love. I'm inspired by James Baldwin as far as writing, being a writer. I've been writing since maybe 7th grade, doing poetry and whatnot. But believe it or not, it's James Baldwin. It's W.E.B. Du Bois. It's also the gentleman who wrote The Telltale Heart. You guys know who that is, right?
Yeah.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan.
Yeah. So probably my first love was Edgar Allan Poe poetry. But music-wise, Jeff, I was born in the 80s. I'm an 80s baby, so I'm all hip-hop, man. I love me some conscious rappers, so I like a little bit of Jay-Z. I love Common. I love Mos Def, who is now Yasin Bey. But I love Nas too. I like the grimy stuff too, so I'm still Wu-Tang. And also I love I love my DC roots too. So I'm into go-go music. My dad was a go-go celebrity back in the day. He had a band called the Mighty Peacemakers. And I actually grew up with Wale, who is a world-renowned rapper now.
Yeah.
I could tell you guys a story about that where we were young and we had a little boxing league in the DC area. And I'm just going to say this, that I actually knocked out Wale twice in a boxing league. Yes. So that's a fact. That's a fact.
Wow.
But he's an amazing rapper. That's and I nothing but love there. But that is a fact that Garry Clark Jr. did have 2 bouts with Wale, and I won.
That's amazing.
So
that's amazing.
Final piece though, Jeff. I'm into jazz, blues. My wife loves country music. I listen to it a little bit. I get it. I'm not a big George Strait fan, but I can jive with it a little bit. So, yeah.
That's good. Well, I love your 80s hip hop. We could have a whole episode on EPMD and Mos Def and some of the other greats from that era for sure. So those are good choices. Yes.
For sure. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, Garry. We appreciate your time, and I look forward to, I follow your adventures on Instagram, which is great. Your family's beautiful, so thanks for sharing them with us. And your book, Unlikely Viking, I've seen you post about that quite a bit. I need to get a copy myself. But folks can find that, I'm sure, on Amazon, right? And
yes.
Yeah,
it's on Amazon, and yeah. But I have copies if people want a signature or a picture with me to make me look better. Join me in a photo op. Yeah.
That's good. That's what we'll have to get. Us together here soon, Garry. I know I need a copy and a time with you as well. I know we're all moving fast and pushing our individual efforts forward, but yeah, kudos to just the hard work you're doing on a daily basis. And yeah, as Shonna said, it's been fun following your journey online, and I appreciate your time here today with us. And we'll link up ways that people can follow you and the work that you're doing here shortly.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We're going to stick together here for a second, but
okay.
Thank you, Garry.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.